Welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with State Senator Scott Oelslager, talking about medical marijuana. And again, operative word, medical.
Right.
So what happens? I mean, how concerned are we that it then turns into recreational, although it's not the same substance, as I understand?
Well, again, with the guardrails we put in there, the recreational marijuana will remain illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this will not be something you could smoke even for medical marijuana. It'll be ingestibles, creams, things like that people can utilize if they have a specific medical condition. The bill calls for 21 different medical conditions that you can qualify. And your doctor would have to write a recommendation. They can't write a prescription because of federal law, but they can write a recommendation. And the doctors will know, and doctors have been licensed, of course, in this area, and they will know what qualifies and what doesn't. For example, AIDS and HIV positive people could possibly qualify. Mm-hmm. Alzheimer's disease is out there. Multiple sclerosis, cancer victims, people are struggling from cancer, epilepsy, glaucoma, fibromyalgia, things like that that are very serious, that traumatic brain injury. So there's a list of 21 very specific symptoms, what you'd have to qualify for. This is the only way you get it. The State Board of Pharmacy is estimating that there'd be 200,000 to 300,000 Ohioans that would qualify. And as you know, we have approximately around 11 million Ohioans in the state. This was
so that large of a percentage of Ohio.
200,000 to 300,000, but there's 11 million people.
Okay, well, that's not that many then.
So
sounds like a big number until you put it that way.
There's some conflicting numbers, but that's what the Board of Pharmacy, State Board of Pharmacy, is saying. That was the witnesses and the people that came into my office was pretty dramatic. Parents who testified and to the legislature about their children having multiple seizures every day, and they took them out of state, and it seemed to help seizures. People with severe pain from cancer treatments. So
there is a good use for it if it's used correctly and properly.
If it's used correctly.
Who grows it? Who's allowed to grow it?
The state of Ohio, the Department of Commerce, is issuing licenses to groups or individuals, companies, whatever, that will grow it. It'll be strictly regulated. I know that what I've heard so far, a lot of it will be grown inside with high security on the outside to make sure nobody can break in and steal it. So it'll be highly regulated at every stage, from the growing stage to the cultivation stage to the dispensing stage.
So it's not in the growing that it's different. It's in the processing, turning it into whatever kind of a pharmaceutical comes from medical marijuana, that makes it be not the thing that would make a person high. I'm just keep going back to thinking, my goodness, we have enough danger out there on the roads with drunk drivers and so forth. Do we really want people also smoking marijuana and driving as well? But you're saying that's the confusion there. That's not happening.
That's my understanding. That's correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, talking about driving and danger of driving, you've been working on texting and driving at the same time. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, the governor did sign a bill recently that deals with drivers could face an extra $100 fine if they're talking or texting when they violate certain traffic laws. Certain things would be like trips to big traffic lights, speeding, left to center, going the wrong way on a ramp, failing to use turn signal, things like that. But they could waive it if they attended a distracted driving class.
Don't text and drive.
Yes.
It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
So, all right. But at least we're addressing it with actual legislation. Scott, more in general, how are you saving taxpayers' money these days?
Well, the main thing what we're doing is we're just keeping a good close eye on the budget and to make sure that the money is being spent wisely. And so far, as I told you earlier, that things have been going pretty well that way.
Yeah. You've been doing some specific things for some of those more low-income voters. What are those things?
With the low-income folks right now, the governor signed a bill that deals with suspended driver's licenses. A person has to show that they're indigent and they have and having their driver's license suspended for a certain amount of time. And this will allow the judge to reduce the BMV to reduce the reinstatement fee to a little bit. But they have to show they're indigent, and because losing their driver's license is one of the main ways for people to remain in poverty.
Interesting. Something that pops up into my head is those payday lending places that there seem to be on every corner. Yeah. What are those, first of all? And what do they do? It seems to me that there would be more likelihood that they would be driving a person into owing more and more and more than to ever getting out of the debt that they've got.
Well, you've kind of summarized it all right there.
Well, I'm sure you say it better.
This is what happens when some people cannot, for whatever reasons, do not have a bank account. So they need to go someplace to get loans. And what was happening is Ohio was recognized as one of the most expensive in the country for these people to borrow money. And so a group came to us and said, we've got to crack down on this because many times people are stuck in this cycle for a long time and they just can't get out because the rates are so high. Some of them, the rates that was discussed in front of my committee were over 500% APR interest.
What?
And so it was very high. So what we did in this bill, and it was a bill that I will say passed in a bipartisan vote in the Senate, 21-9, 14 Republicans, and I carried the bill in the Senate. 14 Republicans and 7 Democrats passed the bill. 9 Republicans opposed it. And some of the things we did there was limit the interest rate to 28%. We said that the loans can only be for 1 year at a time. Mm-hmm. Maximum loan at any given time, as far as per loan, is $1,000, but we capped per year at $2,500.
Well, I was going to say, how many can you? Yeah,
just $2,500. Mm-hmm. It also for loans of under 90 days, the monthly payment cannot be more than 6 to 7%, either net or gross, of a person's income, because that's how they can get trapped when they have to. The loan repayment is too high for them to be able to handle. So we did all those type of things. We also shut down in the process of shutting down the type of places where people go and put their cars up for collateral, and they would lose their cars. Because then they
end up not having a car. What would happen to a person? Well, I cannot imagine if you don't have enough money to pay a certain bill, how you could possibly afford to pay 5 times that bill then later if the interest is 500%. Yeah. What would happen to these people? This is predatory, is it not?
Well, we felt that it was not appropriate. And so we decided we needed to regulate this. We think we've put in a very pro-consumer bill, legislation to protect people, and still allow some companies to do business in the state of Ohio to offer.
What's the response? Do people say, hey, wait, I need to be able to borrow more than this. You're not letting me borrow enough.
We'll see what happens once the bill actually goes into place.
Okay.
But based on the Colorado experience, and Colorado did do some cracking down on this, and this bill is not the Colorado bill, but it's kind of modeled after Colorado. There were still a number of companies doing business, so people could get loans.
Is this one of those things where you were able to, again, work Republicans and Democrats together with just really the consumer in mind?
Yes, that's not exactly what had to happen, because if it didn't, we couldn't have got it done. Same way in the House, the final version in the House passed by over 60 votes, and there was a bipartisan vote in the House to get that done also.
How is it possible to do that at this level, and for some reason, as we watch what's going on down in Washington, to see I don't think I've ever seen such polarization in my life. Mm-hmm. What happens between going from your hometown down to the nation's capital? What happens there?
Well, I think part of it is Columbus. We're a lot smaller pond than Washington is. They have a budget of a couple $1 trillion a year. We spend $66 billion over 2 years for state tax dollars, but then all tax dollars, federal and state, about $130 billion. So it's a smaller pond. There's 33 senators and 99 House members, so we get to know each other pretty well. And you get to know them personally really well. Mm-hmm. So you don't have these walls coming up so severely. I tell people, if they come down to the Senate chamber and watch us vote, you would be shocked that probably 85% of the votes are bipartisan. They're like 32 to nothing, 33 to nothing, 32 to 1, whatever the case may be. I've actually had people do that and say, I'm surprised to see that. I thought there'd be a lot of bickering and back and forth, and there isn't. Now, when it comes down to spending and taxing issues, that's where you do have the partisan votes, because there is a difference between the two parties on spending and taxing. But even after that, you can have a very strong debate with a member on the other side. But when you're done, all of us have come up to the other member on the other side and say, well, yeah, you did a good job with your speech. We obviously didn't agree. And of course, the bill passed the way that my side wanted it to pass because we control the chamber. But I said, we just appreciate that. And I do appreciate that you have differing views. That's what makes our country great.
Yeah.
And just because somebody has a differing view, you can still be their friend. And so
absolutely,
you'll see that in Columbus a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, if two people are thinking exactly alike all the time, then one of them is not necessary, right? It's good to have different points of view, but civility while you're expressing it is maybe a lost art in some circles. For the voters, news about voting machines, I think you have?
Yes, the voting machines, a lot of the voting machines we now have in Ohio that we vote on were a result of the the problem that we had back in the 2000 election. And so a lot of them now have become
hanging
older.
chads.
Excuse me. And so we got rid of the hanging chads machines, and we went to the ones we have. But they're getting older. That means they're 13, 14, 15 years old. And so the county commissioners and the Board of Elections from across the state came to us and said, we need some help to help buy these machines. So we put together a mechanism that will be spending $114 million approximately, that the local counties can go to and work out some kind of deal to buy new voting machines to bring them up to date.
And what will these look like? How will these operate?
I don't know exactly what they're going to look like, and how I'm not a technical person that way. I saw them. They're going to be similar to those little boxes we vote with now.
Still a screen that you tap the screen.
Could be a screen. Sometimes there could be a scanner.
Okay.
A scanning type machine. And I guess there's a hybrid of the both of them somehow. With the printout, so you could actually see in a paper printout how you did vote. And so we're excited about that because we want integrity in our elections. Nothing's worse than going into the polling place and the machine's not working. I've heard stories, that has happened, and then people have to stop that, pull that machine, and it can be a problem. So this was long overdue, and it'll be sort of a bonding mechanism we're utilizing at the state level to help the locals in cooperation with the state to buy those.
What kind of timeline again did you say?
I believe that the goal is to try to have them in place next year in the off-year election, so any kinks can be worked out before we go into the presidential election in 2020 and all that.
Well, that won't be emotional or heated at all, will it?
Yeah. So we want to make sure those machines are in place and they've been worked through and people are comfortable with them.
Will we ever get to the point where we're voting from our phones, do you think?
I hope not. I would be very hesitant about anything like that.
I've heard people say, my goodness, we vote on talent shows and so forth with those, and they have some kind of a way of being able to count those and cut it off after you've done it, and you're only allowed one. But yeah, it does seem that would be a little far removed from reality.
I would be very uncomfortable people voting from their phones.
It's so good seeing your really lifelong commitment to serving. I know Faith's got a huge part of that. You felt called to this for a long time. Just in our closing moments, for you, just this lifetime of service, what has that meant to you?
Well, I believe that the good Lord tells you the greatest commandment: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And when you love your neighbor as yourself, you want to make their life as best as you can in a time of service. My dad taught social studies, and so he kind of drilled it in my head from the time I was growing up. But you touch a lot of lives in this particular job. You touch a lot of lives through the social work you do through your office, where somebody is desperate for trying to get any kind of help. Just it can be anything, and you do the best you can to help them. When you pass legislation, this isn't just words or numbers on a piece of paper. Those words and numbers translate into touching people's lives. And your goal in life is to try to do the best you can to make their life as good as they can for other people. And that's what we've tried to do in all the years I've had the privilege of serving.
Well, we appreciate you, State Senator Scott Oelslager. Thanks for all you do in our community.
Thanks, Susie. Good to see you.